thing I've been searching for is actually within potential reach.
If these birds were in the wild, they would have picked up other natural sounds in the wild.
The song sounds just like something out of this world.
It's really like almost nothing else I've heard.
Listen, shh.
I'd never heard the chainsaw until I came up onto the mountain, which made me think it was a local influence from the logging.
To look to tomorrow, you must first know yesterday.
My name's Peter George. I'm your host for this part of the evening. And I just wanted to start with an acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I currently reside, the Bunurong and Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, and all the peoples of the lands that you stream in from today. So firstly, wanted to say that. A big congratulations to the team. And I know it's actually a joy to host this with so many people associated with the film and so many experts in their field. So it's going to be an incredible session, I have no doubt. My name's Peter George, as I mentioned. I'm a producer, a journalist, a writer, and also the head of a place called JMC Academy, which is a sort of a creative industries college where I run the film department here in Melbourne. And I've been associated with this film from the beginning. In fact, I was out with Mark and Nick on some of the early shoots. I'm very passionate about the work they've put in, the endurance of, and Louisa as well, of creating this film, and to all of you who've been part of it in telling the story. I think the other thing to mention, as Mark already alluded to, the film has already had quite an incredible life. So a lot of people in different parts of the world have engaged and seen the film, but we're entering a new phase now where we really want to incorporate the educational outreach and work towards a study guide. And I suppose I wanted to start by asking Mark about why you've chosen to distribute the film into the sort of education market and what sort of things we're looking for and what we can expect from this sort of approach.
Thanks, Peter, and thank you for hosting tonight for us.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I guess you know, this film started very organically with Nick and I, and it finished organically. It released when it was ready. It wasn't a pressurized situation where a lot of films are, where they must be released, you know, from your start date to your finish date because of money. So that's one thing we've had up our sleeve, and and I guess throughout the process, you know, I've learned that birds, and especially the lyrebird, and animals in general are our teachers, or certainly, that's from my perspective, that's been my experience for quite some time, and hence, you know, I've been making nature documentaries for probably about 12 years now. So, you know, it's been a passion to I guess get my vision or my mind onto screen, so to speak. And but not only that, it's yeah, I just feel that, you know, there's so many distractions in the world today, even from the time we began till to now. Like when we started this film in 2010, we certainly couldn't run movie screenings on, you know, we just didn't have the power on our computers. But obviously, you know, in the last decade, that's taken over, you know, a lot of the younger generation's life. And, you know, to some degree, I think, you know, some screen time is okay. Like we were always in bed at 7:30, but of course, yeah, one of the biggest distractions is the internet itself. But yeah, there's a lot of distractions these days, and I feel, yeah, we're missing out. And I feel, well, certainly the kids that are distracted by technology these days are missing out on what we grew up with. And I guess as I started saying that, yeah, nature is the teacher, and the Lyrebird, yeah, just taught me so many lessons along the way of making this film. So yeah, so it was a natural fit from the time we started getting going with Nick filming, and Nick and I started met each other making educational documentaries, and so it's always been a passion of mine to push messages to, yeah, a younger audience, even though this is not primarily specifically aimed at, 16 or 20-year-olds. But this particular subject, I think it is so niche that, everything from behavioural ecology right even through to media studies for, wildlife cinematography, the beautiful job Nick's done on how to capture a story through imagery of a bird that no one else has really been able to film, not even the ABC, because it's just so difficult. So yeah, that's really a summary of why we're pushing it into the education market.
Thank you. Well, you mentioned Nick, and the Nick we're talking about, I can see on screen, is Nick Hayward, who is an award-winning wildlife cinematographer. Just last week, Nick's latest film, The Platypus Guardian, aired on the ABC. I haven't seen it yet, Nick, but I've got it on iView, ready to watch. It's a prestigious honour that you won the ACS Award of Distinction for David Attenborough's Wonder of Song. And, you are so passionate about your filmmaking as a cinematographer and a director and a producer. But on this work, you spent painstaking hours with Mark capturing the lyrebird in its habitat. I was very interested to know, how do you feel about the film now that you've sort of, it's been 10 years of filming, and would you be approaching lyrebird cinematography in a different way at this point in time with everything that you've learnt?
So first of all, there was a time then when we thought the film would never get finished because it took so long to get into post. But Mark and Louise have done a fantastic job of getting it finished, and it's a wonderful film. And I think what's beautiful about it is the way it touches communities. So it reaches out to communities. And I was at a screening which Alex Maisey hosted at the Sherbrooke Lyrebird group, and you were there, Peter, hosting it. There wasn't a spare seat in this very large cinema, and everyone loved it. Everyone loved the film. It reaches for people in a way because commercial television, like The Platypus Guardian you're talking about, which is a film that you can watch on iView, and it's a beautiful film, but The Platypus Guardian has to be made to suit commissioners who fund the program. Whereas Matt and I made the film we wanted to make. No one told us what we could make or couldn't make. And it was completely, I made the pictures and Mark made the story. It was completely our creation. And as a result, it's a beautiful poetic film. It doesn't have to fit into this box that you have to reach to reach a mainstream audience. With my side of it, I just had a desperate passion to go out and look at lyrebirds and film lyrebirds.
So I suppose just
did that
to ask
for one whole season, and I don't know.
Yep.
Sorry, what were you going to say, Peter?
Oh no, I think it's the reverb.
I had a real passion just to go out in the bush and to be with the lyrebirds, and many people will understand that who are in this group. Alex and Carol, and I see Kevin's there. He spent a lot of time with lyrebirds, Kevin, and it's something which I did, and I felt like I had to do it a little bit further and approach it in a different way. So I'm currently in the Blue Mountains, and I feel like I've filmed the male lyrebird in such a way that it's very hard for other people to get better footage than me. I spent a whole season there, a whole winter. But no one's really explored the female lyrebird. No, we show the female lyrebird in our film, but there's a lot of female lyrebird behavior which we haven't really looked at and explored as filmmakers or even as scientists. And I can see why, because there's a particular piece of behavior that I'm trying to film, which is, it's called the snake dance that females do. That's only been seen by scientists a couple of times. I think Alex may have seen it, but not many people on Earth have seen it. And to do it, I've got to, the access has been washed away by an avalanche to the road. So I've got to walk a couple of Ks down a road, then 400 meters down a slope. And these birds very rarely do this snake dance. So be there at first light. So I've got to get up at 4:30 in the morning. Yesterday it was -3. So that's my next area of Lyrebird filming. I haven't given up. I'm moving forward, progressing from and no one's paying me to be here. I'm on a holiday in the Blue Mountains.
I was just going to say, it sounds like a film about lyrebirds for traditional broadcasting, which clearly this film isn't. Doesn't really need, like it would be a very different film if it was on the ABC.
Yes. Yeah, but what I'm doing at the moment is like what I did with Mark. No one's paid me to be here. No one's told me to be here. I've just come here on a holiday with my lovely partner, Yvette. And it's like an SAS Lyrebird filming holiday. So it's, in a way, amazing. It's very similar. And no one's backing me. I've not got any funding. I'm just off doing it like Mark and I did. So I haven't given up. I'm still doing the same thing, but taking the, not trying to film the males again in the same way, trying to move forward into it.
So one of the stars of the film is here, Alex Maisey, who has seemingly aged not much, but the hair's gone from what you saw in the film. And Alex is, I know, is devoted to the lyrebird, having grown up in the Sherbrooke forest and being associated with the various lyrebird study groups. And I know you've devoted your life academically to the lyrebird as well. I'm very curious to know what is currently captivating you about lyrebirds and the research that you're doing. So how's it extended out from when the film was released?
Oh, thanks, Peter. Yeah, it's a good question how it's evolved since then, because that was a few years ago, and it was actually pre my scientific training entirely. So that I guess I've seen it in two very different lights. First, just captured by the wonder of lyrebirds and the magic of these incredible creatures, for their mimicry, their dance, their whole life ecology. But then as I've gone down this scientific career, I guess, I undertook a PhD project on lyrebirds as ecosystem engineers, and this really just showed me a whole world of new knowledge in what lyrebirds were actually doing in the forests as really important functional members of the forest community. When they scratch in the forest floor, they're changing the litter, they're changing the soil in such a profound way that it's affecting not just the structure of the litter and soil, but going on to affect the plants, the small invertebrates that live in that soil, and over hundreds or thousands of years, potentially shaping that entire ecosystem. So the importance of lyrebirds from a functional point of view has become really apparent to me. But of course, when people think of lyrebirds, they mostly think of the song and dance, and very few people realise that they're actually this actual heavyweight around the world in as an ecosystem engineer. To our knowledge, there's no other land animal that turns over more litter and soil. Lyrebirds turn over an average of 155.7 tonnes of litter and soil per hectare per year. We call these ecosystem engineers because they are modifying the environment, essentially being natural compost creators. They also shape fire behaviour because they effectively remove much of the surface fuels, which is actually an important process for post-fire recovery. So 100 by 100 metres, 155 tonnes, and it's actually more material than any other animal per unit area moves around the globe. So really significant species, and this is something that just wasn't really thought about. It was all sort of about the song and the dance. So it's been fabulous to see that they're actually a really important member of the community in the forest as well.
That's really interesting. It sounds like there's a whole other film there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe.
When Nick comes back from Tassie, from New South Wales.
Yeah. Now, I'm jumping around because I know we've got limited time and we could spend hours talking about this topic with all of you. The next person I'd like to introduce is Jan Incoll. And now, Jan, you are from the Sherbrooke Lyrebird study group. And I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that you received an Order of Australia medal last week for your service to conservation and the environment. So congratulations to you, Jan. That's amazing. I just wanted to know, what message did you want to impart to future students who might want to kind of connect with lyrebirds? And I mean, is there a message that you would like to impart to people who might see this film and want to, you know, engage further with connecting with the different groups and connecting with the sounds and connecting with all the work that's being done? And welcome.
You have thrown me into the deep end. I just think that we appreciate everybody who comes to our dawn surveys. We had a very good roll-up last Saturday morning. It was a tad windy, but it was fine. And we'd like to encourage more people to join the group, particularly younger people who've got more energy.
That's great. That's fantastic. That's great that younger.
But the last survey that we did last year, because COVID had a big interruption those 2 years, we had 76 male lyrebirds, which was pretty exciting. And so the population in Sherbrooke is very healthy.
Excellent.
So my thing is, please encourage young people to join us.
Yes. And you must have been, I mean, it's a great honour to win that award. What was your first reaction when you heard about that?
Absolute surprise. Absolute surprise. So now I've got a King's RIM and my husband Bill, who helps with the surveys, and you saw him in the film. He's got a Queen's one, so there's not many companies.
Oh wow, that's you might go into some record books. There
you go. Yes.
Yeah, wow. Well done for all your efforts and contributions over the years. It's quite incredible. What I was going to ask Jan was about her hours of voluntary work and decades of dedication. So maybe I could direct this to you, Mark. Like, in making the film, you obviously tapped into these incredible people who've spent, you know, their whole lives and continue to devoted to this sort of exploration of lyrebirds and their habitat. What did you take away from that passion and that commitment from this incredible community?
Well, certainly, you know, once you start a project like this, you've got the weight on your shoulders, I guess, to get what you filmed onto the screen and move that that energy, that vibration that they were giving, and that information that they were sharing. You want to give it, you know, full truth, and that's sometimes hard when you're editing because you are literally manipulating imagery every time you cut,
particularly with hours of footage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we literally had hours, and some of our interviews went for, you know, well, the one with Anastasia, I remember, went for about 4 hours. So, you know, I think Carol we interviewed twice for, you know, about 2 hours each time. So, you know, to put these people in the hot seat and, you know, and do a disservice is not what you want as a filmmaker. So, and I guess, you know, all of these, you know, great individuals that we got to meet along the way and learn from ourselves, you know, they are, in my eyes, as I pushed out onto the screen there, the real stars. And you know, when I say stars, I don't mean like a Hollywood star, but I mean, you know, stars were guides that we followed, and you know, and they took us to our destination. So I feel that, yeah, you know, every one of those characters is now part of me, because, you know, living with this project for so long, and, you know, watching them in my edit suite so many times, and wanting to keep things and remove things was very difficult. But yeah, I feel that, yeah, they too are my teachers.
Thank you for jumping in there. Carol, hello. Your part of the film was very fascinating and beautiful, and I'm very interested to know about your recording of bird sounds, and what you'd like to sort of impart to students and sort of the education market about the work that you do, and how to kind of connect, you know, future students or people maybe who've never heard these sounds to this incredible poetry.
Well, if you're talking about recording birds, I'm actually very far from an expert. I'm credited as a bird recordist in the film, but I really only took up recording birds so I could capture the lyrebird sounds, and that's pretty much the only bird recording I've done. But
a specialist.
But I mean, I've been absolutely fascinated by lyrebirds since the 1980s, you know, when I started sort of going out in the bush in the Blue Mountains, and they just, you know, I've been particularly fascinated ever since then. So it kind of, it was a pretty natural thing to go out and start recording their calls. It's kind of a long story how I teamed up with Hollis and Vicky to do the study of the flute lyrebirds. In some areas, the song sounds just like something out of this world, like you just couldn't imagine the unusual variations of the song. That involved going up to these freezing cold areas in the New England tablelands in the middle of winter, and so many logistical problems with getting to the right places at the right times. And so it was quite an adventure, and it took many trips up there, but it was, yeah, it was just such an incredible experience.
And are there any updates on your research with the flute-playing birds?
Well, 3 papers have been published. I think it's 3. Correct me if I'm wrong, someone. When was the last one published? Just a few years ago. So there's been no real updates since then, just the publication of the first paper looked at the story, the historical aspects of the flute lyrebird story. The second one was the mapping of where we heard it, where we recorded it. And the third paper was an analysis of the song. And, you know, all of these papers were looking towards to try and answer the question of, you know, is this actually did it originate from mimicry of a boy playing a flute, as the story goes, or is it a naturally occurring variation of the song?
Thank you. Now, there's so many great people here. It's really a bit overwhelming almost. Another incredible person, and I think I met this person, Kevin Mason, like when we did one of the very early shoots. Is that right, Nick and Mark, at Hillsville Sanctuary?
Yeah, that's
when
correct.
Kevin, you were still the Lyrebird keeper at the sanctuary, and I was there on that particular shoot. Now, I also wanted to acknowledge the work that led to your OAM last year for your environmental conservation efforts. So a big kudos to you, Kevin, and it's great that you can join us tonight. I just wanted to know, like, at the moment, how are you still engaged? You've retired now, but are you still engaged with lyrebirds and their world?
I'd like to say good evening to everybody, and thank you, Peter. I'm not, haven't been as involved as I had been, but I was 4 or 5 decades heavily involved with captivity and in the wild, and with a number of other active people in that field, which I'm still in touch with from time to time. And one just recently received a letter from Enid Raynor up in Queensland, and she's done a lot of recording with her husband when he was with us, Ralph, and she's still out there well into her 80s, and she's still recording. And she recorded one that I found was of great interest, of the lyrebird actually calling like fire burning through the leaves and grasses, and that was an interesting call. But one thing I'd like to comment with Nick is when he spoke about the snake dance. Could you explain what you were meaning by that?
Alex, do you want to explain what the snake
Alex.
dance is?
I love the handball.
Throw me under the bus, Nick. Throw me under the bus. So what we
I've never seen it.
No. So it's a posturing that the females do when they're engaged in female territorial displays, and the females will meet each other in the forest, and it's often at the time of year when they're incubating an egg, and they'll put they would fan their tail out. Occasionally they'll display, and they'll sort of have this little strut where they kind of angle their head down, and they'll strut along the ground at each other, and then they'll snake their neck. And the males actually do it as well when another bird approaches. So it's, and I wonder whether it might even be that, as you know, when the lyrebirds start off as a young chick, they have this very rufous throat and rufous fronds on the head, and I wonder whether it's a dominance thing, and as the bird ages, it fades through to a very dull slaty grey. And this seems to be the first thing they do. It's like a greeting in the forest, and if you see this bird snaking the neck, you know that there's another bird there. Usually the lyrebird sees the approaching other lyrebird well before you do. But the females, they do this incredible territorial behavior, and they have their own version of songs, and they're very specific songs. And it's just this whole routine and sequence, and it's quite conserved across the population. So they do it down here in Sherbrooke, and they do it up in the Blue Mountains. I've got beautiful recordings up there too.
I've seen them do that in captivity, and it looks as if there's another bird in the flying about or something, where they're looking, and beak pointed directly up with a strong beak, neck I mean, going up and looking skyward. And yes, I've seen that in the captivity. The reason I brought it up is that in captivity at the sanctuary, wildlife come into the enclosure from time to time, and we've had snakes in there on 2 occasions, and both the female especially would approach the snake, and with its head pointed out towards the snake, and then it'd be jumping side to side, going backwards and forwards in front of the snake itself, basically mesmerizing the snake. And I was able to walk up very quietly, and the snake just stayed there, although the female backed off, and I was able to pick the snake up and put it in a bag and remove it. And that happened on 2 occasions there. So when they're dancing backwards and forwards, the head is going down towards the front of the snake and moving side to side.
Oh, we seem to have frozen Kevin there. Are you still with us, Kevin? No. This is what happens in Zoom land, folks. I wanted to, well, there's a few other people to acknowledge here tonight, Mark. One of them I can see, Andrew Harper. Welcome, Andrew. I'm curious, like, since watching the film, I presume you've seen it several times. Tell us about your work and your own citizen science work with Lyrebird since the film.
I guess it's a bit embarrassing to look back and see yourself making comments about foreplay of Lyrebirds and speculating back all those years ago. It's a bit of fun though, wasn't it?
It's a moment in time.
Yes, yes.
You've heard it, haven't you? That clunky noise I'm talking about?
Could have sounded a bit like a machine gun.
Yeah. And you reckon that was the bird's natural noise?
It was very much the bird making it, but I've asked around a bit, and the verdict is that it's most likely a mating sound, and it's almost a sound of foreplay.
Yeah. So it's its natural sound, though. It's not that it's copied it from a mechanical thing.
The understanding that sound is made when the female is on the mound and the male's coming to get her.
Wow.
So it's almost this is all happening, buddy.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually wasn't going to join on this tonight, and I reread Mark's email. Thanks for that, Mark, about asking me to make a comment about citizen science. I'd never heard of that term. I didn't even know what it was. So I also went to do some searching and having a look around what it is. It's also used interchangeably with the term community scientist, and I'm whatever that is. So I'm out in this beautiful nature, experiencing the musical theatre, the song and dance, only to discover that I'm actually a community scientist or a citizen scientist. I guess it's just 4 points I could make to you, Peter, about what I got thinking about this, what it is, what does it mean, what has it done? And I think I've been hovering on the edge of the Sherbrooke survey group for about 15 years. I've participated 15, 20 times in the early survey. We were out there last Saturday morning in the 2 or 3 degrees at some silly hour of the morning. I think I've really appreciated that the survey group sends me the data. Now, it probably comes a few months too late, but I'll still take it when it comes, Alex and Phil and Norm, who's in there. I really appreciate over time getting that longitudinal perspective of what's happening in the forest and the changes that are being made. I think, secondly, I've just thought being plugged into one issue, which is the song and dance and the vaudeville act with these charismatic birds, has really drawn me into other land care issues and environmental issues. And even the pests and vermin. I understand it's been cats and dogs, but now deer and other issues like that. It's heightened my awareness as a community member of those issues around us. I think as a citizen scientist, I've just realised how much fun it is actually to be out with some people that have got a similar interest, and we talk about seeing birds, what we're seeing, what we haven't seen early in the morning. It's social, it's invigorating. I only do it a couple of times a year if I do, and it's crazy but enriching. And I think the last thing is being a citizen scientist, which is a whole new term for me, but I think the movie's given me an impetus to keep reading, keep learning. I spoke to Alex on Saturday morning. Alex, you told me I'm one of 10 people that's had a look at some of your research papers in Victoria. But I think through the abstracts and the conclusions, the flicking through your papers, I haven't read them all in full, but I know they're there. I've seen them on your website. I've actually learnt about ecosystem engineering. I didn't know about that before. I didn't even know about that before the movie came out. And I've learned about the land care corridors and opening up corridors from the papers as well. So I think being involved is really, as a basic community member, coming along for some fun, has opened up new avenues of learning and insight, which have been very enriching and nourishing.
Thank you so much. Mark, yes. Mark, I think we might be ready to open up to everybody and some further questions.
And just before we do, I just wanted to, 2 quick things was to thank everybody. It's, like in my emails that I've sent you, it's just so much appreciative of, of you guys coming into this edu-action drive, which is what we're calling it, to help the film, progress, because, without you, and this film is about community, and therefore, again, it's a self-reflexive thing. We really want to put this out to community to chip in to make it happen. So thank you all for contributing to the tonight's screening. And secondly, just a couple of people that couldn't make it tonight. One was Anastasia. She's having some real health issues at the moment, and she passes on her best wishes and apologies that she couldn't be here. And also Rob Dunn from BirdLife Shoalhaven, who had partnered with the film, so they tipped in $1,500 to push this film into the education sector. Rob said, BirdLife Shoalhaven had a great turnout at the film. He's referring to the screening we had this time last year. I think it was the 23rd of June, which filled their little community cinema of 170 people. And we were down there to witness that. It was amazing. And he says, you may want to mention that the number of people whose properties were badly burnt would talk about the initial silence in the bush, but then talk about the ray of hope that they got personally from hearing the birds again. And the lyrebirds, he says, that as an iconic species in our area, played a key role in lifting the moods in those difficult times. So, yeah, lyrebird is a healer as well.
Beautiful.
So just want to acknowledge those two people that couldn't make it. But
Yes. And Cam Walker, did you want to mention?
Yeah, Cam also, obviously, he's the coordinator at Friends of the Earth, and he wasn't sure if he could or couldn't make it, but
he does great work and continues to do so.
Yeah, just, and the success that they've had recently to stop native logging in Victoria, that's pretty incredible, considering that he's been at it for about 30 plus years. So.
And Mark, what is the strategy, obviously, to extend it out to the education market? Because when we talk about education, we talk about primary, secondary, and tertiary and beyond. So is it about going to schools? Is it about organising more screenings of the film in an educational context? Is it about trying to get younger people with some of the stuff Jan was saying, coming out and joining these groups? Is that part of the messaging?
Absolutely, all of that, Peter. It's the film itself will have a study guide companion to the film, which teachers use, and that will have a whole different range of activities for secondary and tertiary, as I said, from all the way from science down to citizen science, if you like. And so the idea is to get people out into the bush, and not even just about lyrebirds, because not every school's going to have lyrebirds in their backyard. So we really want to push the nature narrative. Get school kids to create their own nature narratives, so get them to listen and observe and understand a bit more about what's going on out there. But also we've got, which you see in the middle of the film, which Bernadette, I don't think she's here either. I thought she might have been here, but she was the artist and animator of the Dreaming Story, Yandalara, which translates to the land of peace between peoples. And so this Dharawal Dreaming Story, we created to also use as a standalone film, and we created an introduction on Auntie Fran as well, and it's voiced or narrated by her son Gawain, which is just a beautiful little piece before the animation Dreaming Story, and so that will be used in for primary younger audiences, the early primary, but that will be used primarily through the Dharawal People's website, which we'll link in from the Australian Teachers of Media, who will do our study guide for the film, but we'll link them in, and it'll be all free resources, and it'll be all their resources that they've obviously created and they've written, because we don't want to write their story again. So that's a real bonus too of the this whole education distribution, is that we will hopefully touch on all primary, secondary, and tertiary throughout,
and find new audiences for the film as we go through that. I think we're ready to open up to questions or comments, or if any good ideas people might have about the educational outreach, if you'd like to share those. So does anyone want to say anything before we round it up?
I'd just like to apologise for the dropout I had there before, and
don't worry, it
this
happens.
is all new to me, and I'm
Yeah,
lucky
no.
to have my granddaughter here to get me back online.
It's all fine. We kept going, and it's all completely fine.
Well, I'm pleased you did. Yeah.
Just wanted to also acknowledge that Norm Carter's here. Norm was part of the film. Maybe Norm might
Hi, Norm.
have a couple of words to say to see what he's been up to.
Yeah, I've been out of the scene for a while. I've moved to Lakes Entrance, and it's always good, like Andrew said, to get the information that the Lyrebird group still sends out to people. That's great. But I'm sort of still in touch with the Lyrebirds down here at Lakes Entrance, but just on a personal level. I survey a property every year and see how many birds there are and things like that, and got involved with a few other things down here. But I certainly miss Sherbrooke. Last time I was in there, I had ferns over my head, so it was a bit hard to see the Lyrebirds. But you know, I'd encourage any young people, like Jan said, to get out and join the group, and it's really rewarding. And, you know, there is still lots to learn about the Lyrebirds. And congratulations, Jan, on your award as well.
Fantastic. Beautifully said. Beautiful words from Christy, that we are not owners of this place, but need to be gracious custodians for the future to have its place. We all need to walk gently to preserve its grace. Beautifully said. Thank you for sharing that.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So there is a question again from Christy, wondering if the Lyrebirds seem to copy territorial calls in particular. Who would like to? Is that an Alex question?
Could be. The territorial calls, they're the ones that are really the long whistle song that Carol was studying up in the New England. So I don't know, maybe Carol would be a better place to answer it. But
Carol,
unmute yourself, Carol.
I'm wondering if Christy means do they copy the territorial calls of other species? Is that what you meant, Christy?
Yes.
Okay. So Alex might.
Back to Alex.
But yeah, look, I think in just thinking about it, I think they mimic not only territorial calls, but all sorts of, you know, they'll mimic flight calls and alarm calls. And would you agree with that, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just find the Lyrebird's territorial call amazing. I've actually got your paper up on my other screen here, Carol, that was in Corella. And it's just amazing looking at the sonograms, just the different structures of the Lyrebird's call. So every population of Lyrebirds has its own dialect, and it's just remarkable how detailed and how beautiful they can be. I think that's something that's I'm really in awe of. And the more I travel around the country and hear different Lyrebirds, the more fascinated I am by that variation. Why are they so variable? Like the Lyrebird has its own song, but it's just so unique to place. And that's something that's beautifully captured in that paper that you and Hollis and Vicky did. I think that's great.
Yeah, thanks. So it was such a journey of discovery, recording them up there, because you know, sort of we'd plan our trips with the map and think, well, you know, we need to go to as many places as possible within this area and work out where we were going to go. And every new place that I went, it was like, just like, what am I going to hear here because, you know, the territorial songs were just so different. In a way, a lot more variety in the territorial songs really than the suite of mimicry that they do.
Can I just share that map? Do you mind if I just share screen, Mark? Because it's a really funky map, and hopefully you'll see the right one.
Oh, we love the map.
Can you see that with all those different sonograms?
Yes, I can tell you're a real academic now. You have a map.
Grown-up academic.
Yeah.
Still a baby academic. But yeah, I just thought those each of those. So what we're looking at there is obviously the map of that northern New South Wales area, but each of those little panels is I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but they're each a dialect, and it's the frequency of the sound over time, and every call you can just see visually how different those patterns are. And if you can imagine that as sound, these are sort of these flute-like whistles. It's really a very neat way of comparing different populations, and that's only a tiny part of the Lyrebird's range, really, in that northern New South Wales section. So I just thought.
Joanna's asking, what is the source for the map, or can you tell us how the map came to be? Or
the map that Alex is showing is from the our paper that was published in Corella. Look, if anyone's interested, maybe
I can put something in the chat.
I'm not sure. I don't think the Corella ones are open access, are they?
Or maybe the study guide can incorporate all of these.
If they're not,
links.
I'd be happy to send a copy to anyone who's interested.
We just wanted to finish with Kevin, because you were telling that wonderful story about volunteering, but we got cut off. Do you want to finish your story? It was quite inspirational.
I had another comment there on territorial calls, which I think is a learnt call from the young birds within that particular region. We hand raised a young lyrebird male, and unfortunately, being the first one, he was about 4 weeks of age when it came into the sanctuary. And the interesting thing about it was, it was the first 2 weeks it was hand raised inside a house, and then it was given over to 2 keepers, myself and another chap, and we put it in an enclosure. In hindsight, we should have had that enclosure down near the aviary where the adult lyrebirds were, but this was some distance away in the administration area, and this lyrebird male, his territorial call ended up being that of the kookaburra, and he would start off his calls with the kookaburra. He'd go through his other imitations, and then he'd bring that kookaburra territorial call back into it, and that still worked. That was the bird that went to Adelaide Zoo eventually. His name was Chook, and he could even say hello, Chook, because every time we walked into the enclosure, we talked to him and feed him in the initial periods of time. So yeah, so it was. I found that very interesting in that aspect, whether that throws some light on what you're suggesting and doing about the different territories and so forth. But I thought that'd be something interesting to put forward to you.
Thank you, Kevin. That's wonderful.
And I always believe and encourage people that when they come to the sanctuary, if they can get voluntary work, to work. And if they had anything in particular, like the lyrebird, his observation is the most important thing in my mind. And and observing their movements and whatever they're doing in that aspect. Yeah, I found that most important.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think this is the last chance because we're going to finish in a moment. So does anyone have any final questions or comments or anything they'd like to say before we finish this evening?
I'm just going to...
Yes, Carol.
Yes, sorry. I'm just going to put in the chat a link to the Flute Lyrebird website, which has some examples of recordings of the Flute Lyrebird songs. So for anyone who's
I'm going to share that with our audio students here at JMC. So I'm going to educate them about all your work. Spread the word about the film, because the more people that talk about it, the more people will want to connect with it, and that'll facilitate other screenings and other outreach, particularly within schools and other educational sectors. Well, look, incredible film, wonderful achievement, incredible array of gifted people here. I'm in awe of you all and all the work, and I wish every success for this educational outreach and hope to be part of that as well, Mark and Nick and Louisa. We'll just say great job. Have a wonderful evening wherever you are around Australia or internationally. And all the best to everyone.